Shalom ve'erev tov, good evening. Welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin. Prime Minister Netanyahu further decreed never again is relevant today more than ever, and that the nation of Israel has learned its lessons from the Holocaust.
עמנו למד את הלקח. שנה אחר שנה אני עמדתי פה. התחייבתי בעצרת יום השואה, התחייבתי לא נאפשר לאיראן לפתח נשק גרעיני. וכראש ממשלת ישראל הבטחתי, לא תהיה שואה נוספת. השנה מימשנו הבטחה זו הלכה למעשה. הנחתנו על משטר האימים באיראן את המכה הקשה ביותר בתולדותיו. המשטר הזה חלש מאי פעם. מרבית הנכסים הצבאיים שלו עבדו.
Earlier in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the collapse of negotiations with Iran, stressing that the naval blockade aims to force Iran to capitulate to America's demands as the terror regime in Tehran continues to block the Strait of Hormuz in defiance of international laws and norms. Moreover, President Trump noted that the Iranians, in their desperation, have already reached out to his team and that they are very keen on reaching a deal. On that, President Trump stressed unequivocally that the Ayatollah regime would never attain nuclear weapons.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly. They will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal. There'll never be a deal. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and we're going to get the dust back. We'll get it back either. We'll get it back from them or we'll take it.
In a subsequent special exclusive interview for Fox News, a special report with Brett Barr, Vice President J.D. Vance insisted that the so-called bull is now in the court of the Iranians. Vice President Vance continued by stressing that the United States expects the Islamic Republic to open the Strait of Hormuz, that after the RGC seemingly miscalculated America's determined position.
We need to see the Straits of Hormuz fully open. And this is frankly one of the things where the Iranians tried to move the goalposts during the negotiation. We made very clear that that's unacceptable. We came to the negotiation saying the United States, what we've given here is a ceasefire. We've stopped bombing the country. What we expect the Iranians to give up is a full reopening of the Straits of Hormuz. We have seen, as the president has said, some significant uptick in traffic coming through the Straits of Hormuz. That's good for the global economy.
Meanwhile, in London, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a soon-to-be-held summit with French President Emmanuel Macron, among other European leaders, to discuss the opening of the Strait of Hormuz.
I can confirm today that together with President Macron, I will convene a summit of leaders this week to drive forward the international effort we have built in recent weeks, bringing together dozens of countries to ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The summit will be focused on two things. First, diplomatic efforts to bring pressure to bear for a negotiated end to the conflict and for the strait to be opened. Second, military planning to provide assurance to shipping as soon as a stable environment can be established. And let me be very clear, this is about safeguarding shipping and supporting freedom of navigation once the conflict ends.
The British Prime Minister continued by stressing that Britain would not stand by the United States in enforcing the naval blockade against the Islamic Republic.
In relation to the blockade, let me be clear, as I've been already in the last day or so, that we are focusing our efforts on opening in full the Strait of Hormuz because of the damage it's doing to economies around the world, including our own economy. That is why we've been working with other countries at various levels, and we'll bring them together in a summit later this week. And we, the UK, will not be joining the blockade that the President announced.
It is worth noting that according to assessments, Iran is set to sustain losses of roughly $435 million a day, with the most significant losses outside of Iran expected to impact China. Consequently, China has called on both the United States and Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz.
中方敦促各方恪守停火安排，聚焦对话和谈大方向，以实际行动推动地区局势缓和，尽早恢复海峡通行正常。
It is important to highlight that China is heavily reliant on energy products transiting the Strait of Hormuz, importing roughly 5.5 million barrels per day of crude oil, which represents about 45 to 49% of China's total crude oil imports, alongside roughly 19.4 million metric tons of liquid natural gas, or LNG, which represents approximately 30% of China's total LNG imports.
伊朗战事爆发后，燃料的价格急剧的上涨且持续高位，石油的运输成本大幅攀升，这些因素正在通过供应链传导推高全球商品生产与运输的成本。全球的货物贸易预计会可能大幅下滑。世界贸易组织最新的全球贸易展望和统计已经大幅调减了对全球货物贸易量的增速预期。
Meanwhile, in China, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who has been promoting anti-American and anti-Israeli policies, is currently visiting Beijing for meetings with President Xi Jinping, during the course of which he urged the Chinese Communist Party to take a more active role in Europe, while claiming further that only China could resolve the situation in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz.
Se me antoja muy difícil encontrar otros interlocutores que puedan desanudar esta situación provocada en Irán y en el estrecho de Hormuz, más allá de China.
Israel's intelligence agency Mossad will not cease its operations against the Ayatollah regime in Iran until this evil regime, which calls and proactively works for Israel's annihilation, will cease and desist.
טועים התמימים כי השואה היא נחלת העבר, כי במציאות של ימינו לא ייתכן רצח עם, כי לא ייתכנו קריאות להשמדה ולא תצמח שנאה המאיימת על קיומו של עם. האיום האיראני הלך והתעצם מול עינינו, לנגד עיני העולם, כמעט באין מפריע. התרענו פעם אחר פעם על סכנת הגרעין, קיום קיומי. התרענו פעם אחר פעם על כמויות הטילים הבליסטיים שמאיימות על אזרחי ישראל, בכל מקום בארץ. ועל הסכנה הנשקפת לנו מהמשטר האיראני. ולבסוף לקחנו את גורלנו בידינו. ויצאנו לשתי מלחמות כורח.
The Mossad director continued by revealing that the intelligence agency had in fact never assessed the fall of the Ayatollah regime during the war. Rather, it planned for the days after the battle ceased to enable the terror regime's inevitable collapse.
במלחמת שאגת הארי הוביל צה"ל בסיוע המוסד מתקפה חסרת תקדים שהנחיתה מכה קשה על המשטר האיראני, נגד מי שחרת על דגלו להשמידנו, נגד מי שתלה שעון ענק הסופר כביכול לאחור את קיומנו. לצידנו, בברית איתנה ובשיתוף פעולה היסטורי עם המעצמה החזקה ביותר בעולם, נלחמנו יחד למען ערכי הצדק והחירות. 40 ימי לחימה עצימה הביאו להישגים משמעותיים ביותר, ובראשם פגיעה במטרתו המרכזית של האויב, השמדת מדינת ישראל. המוסד פעל פעם נוספת בלב טהרן, הבאנו מודיעין מדויק עבור חיל האוויר, ופגענו בטילים שמאיימים על אזרחי ישראל. אך משימתנו טרם הושלמה. לא חשבנו שמשימה זו תושלם מיד עם שוך הקרבות, אך תכננו גם תכננו שהמערכה שלנו תימשך ותבוא לידי ביטוי גם בתקופה שלאחר התקיפות בטהרן.
Director Barna further mentioned that he views the Mossad's anticipated achievement to realize the fall of the terrorist Ayatollah regime as part of a clear decree rooted in lessons learned from the Holocaust of World War II, namely, never again.
מחויבותנו תושלם רק כאשר יוחלף המשטר הקיצוני הזה. אותו משטר שרוצה את השמדתנו חייב לחלוף מן העולם. זו משימתנו, לא נמשיך להביט מנגד על איום קיומי נוסף. מתוך ציווי ברור, לעולם לא עוד.
It is interesting to know that while the Mossad intelligence agency has made it clear that Jerusalem's intentions are to remove the existential threats to the state of Israel, namely the Ayatollah regime in Iran, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, in a Q&A session at an event of Turning Point USA, highlighted a very generous offer by the United States of America to the Ayatollah regime in Iran, so long as it agrees to end its nuclear program, among others.
The president set a policy: Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and right now we are negotiating to make sure that very thing happens. And here's, what's interesting about this is What's interesting about this is that we have this ceasefire that's in place. I think it's 6 or 7 days old. Right now, this ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. And what he's basically offering to Iran is very simple, and frankly, it's something that no president has had the ability to offer. He said that if you're willing to act like a normal country, we are willing to treat you economically like a normal country. He doesn't want a small deal. And that's one of the reasons why, one, I'd say in Pakistan, we made a ton of progress. But the reason why the deal is not yet done is because the president, he really wants a deal where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, Iran is not state-sponsoring terrorism, but also the people of Iran can thrive and prosper and join the world economy. And that's the trade that he's offering. He's saying, if you guys commit to not having a nuclear weapon, we are going to make Iran thrive, we're going to make it economically prosperous, and we're going to invite the Iranian people into the world economy in a way they haven't been in my entire life. And that's the kind of Trumpian grand bargain that the president has put on the table. Man, we're going to keep on negotiating and try to make it happen because it would be great for the world, it'd be great for our country, it'd be great for everybody. So I'm going to keep on fighting to make it happen.
The Iranian president, in a cabinet meeting broadcast to the Iranian people, continued by conveniently playing the victim, insisting that there was no actual reason for the United States and Israel to launch their attacks against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
به چه حقی اینا به کشور ما حمله کردن؟ چه گناهی داشتیم ما؟ به چه دلیلی رهبر ما رو شهید کردن؟ چیکار کرده بودیم؟ به چه دلیلی اومدن فرماندهان ما رو، دانشمندان ما رو، دانش آموزان، دلیلشون چی بود؟ چرا این کارو؟ چیکار کرده بودیم ما؟ به جای حمله کرده بودیم؟ یه قانونی رو زیر پا گذاشته بودیم، ما چیکار کرده بودیم؟
It is important to point out, in response to President Pezeshkian's supposedly rhetorical questions, that the Ayatollah regime in Iran was essentially at war with the United States, Israel, and Western-aligned countries at large since its founding in 1979. During Operation Epic Fury, it proved that it had lied about the capacity and distance of its ballistic missiles program. It repeatedly had failed to comply by its non-proliferation treaty commitments not to pursue nuclear capabilities, a position explicitly stated by the International Atomic Energy Agency. It had repeatedly kidnapped and held hostage American, European, Australian, and civilians from other countries, and it facilitated a network for Shiite proxies that have waged war against the West at large and Israel in particular, murdering thousands, to include Americans, Canadians, Israelis, Europeans, and Australians, among others. Moreover, it has suppressed the Iranian people themselves, murdering hundreds of thousands of civilians since taking over the country in 1979, including over 35,000 during national unrest in January of 2026. Meanwhile, in Washington, for the first time since the early 1980s, official Lebanese and Israeli officials have sat to negotiate overtly with the core objective of achieving peace.
This is a historic opportunity. We understand we're working against decades of history and complexities that have led us to this unique moment. And the opportunity here, I know some of you are shouting questions about ceasefires. This is a lot more than just about that. This is about bringing a permanent end to 20 or 30 years of Hezbollah's influence in this part of the world and not just the damage it's inflicted on Israel, the damage it's inflicted on the Lebanese people. That is the hope here today. That is what we are beginning to work. We are joined by excellent people who will be in a position to obviously take this back to their respective capitals. This is a process, not an event. This is more than just one day. This will take time, but we believe it is worth this endeavor, and it's a historic gathering that we hope to build on. And the hope today is that we can outline the framework upon which a permanent and lasting peace can be developed, so that, as I said, the people of Israel can live in peace, and the people of Lebanon can live not just in peace, but the prosperity and security that they deserve.
Following the negotiations, Israeli ambassador to Washington, Dr. Yechiel Leiter, voiced genuine hope for the future.
What gives me hope is the fact that the Lebanese government made it very clear that they will no longer be occupied by Hezbollah. And Iran has been weakened. Hezbollah is dramatically weakened. This is an opportunity. This is the first time our two countries are sitting together in over 3 decades. Let's feel the moment. Let's enjoy the moment.
Meanwhile, in Beirut, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah detested the Lebanese government for directly negotiating with Israel and called for an immediate ceasefire as its terror army is slowly but surely being degraded.
نحن نريد وقف إطلاق نار شامل وعدم العودة إلى مرحلة ما قبل 2 آذار، يعني اغتيالات واعتداءات. يجب أن ندخل إلى مرحلة جديدة.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News.